So what we're going to do is spend the next 45 minutes or so kind of talking through very high level some of the features that are in Microsoft Dynamics GP. And this is the current shipping version, so it's GP 2016, R2 actually. And before we kind of start drilling into it, I'm logged in as a system administrator, so keep that in mind. There's no security being applied to my account. I can go anywhere and do anything. I can see it all, do it all. Where in real life, that's not the case for all users. And so when a user logs in, they kind of land on what we call their home page, and you'll see it's got the system admin's home page up here in the top left corner. And this is really just a collection of things that I work on kind of on a regular basis, so I do every day, and kind of shortcuts. And so I've got really my whole day's work here on my home page. And you'll see a lot of different kind of presentations here. This, of course, is customizable by each user, so we all have different things we do in the company, so we'd all have most likely a different home page and different things that we want access to. And so I'm going to go a little bit out of order, just because. But we'll start off with the reports area. So it says My Reports. These are reports that I run on a daily basis or a regular basis, and I want to be able to have access to with one mouse click. And so here, when I print, this is just a list of open AP, so vendor invoices that have yet to be paid. And so with one click, I can have that report generate. I don't have to go digging through menus or trying to find where was that report that I needed, and you just bring it on your home page and then you can run it from there. All the kind of the out-of-the-box reports, so to speak, and I'll call this a more traditional accounting style report. They all kind of look and feel the same way. You can send these out to people via email, and so I have a PDF creator. I actually have Adobe installed, but anything that creates a PDF, if it's installed on your machine, you'll be able to send the report out in PDF. And of course, I sent mine to the screen, but sometimes you always want the report sent out on the to the printer, and so you don't have to look at it first. I'm doing that obviously so you all can see it. But if I do want to print it, get something on paper, I can click print, and then any printer that is available to this computer actually is available here, and I can send out, including the ability to create a PDF if I have a Adobe, in this case, print driver. Then I could print directly to a PDF device as well. And so very easy to decide kind of where I want my reports and how I want them to look. And so, of course, way down at the bottom, I'll get the totals and so forth. And these reports are the traditional style, meaning these are the original accounting reports. They're meant to put something on paper, and so there's no drill downs or drill backs or anything of the sort on this type of report. Now, we'll see in a minute some other ways to look at data that are a little more modern, a little more intuitive, but there's about 1,000 of these type reports that are on the menu system, depending on which modules you might actually use. The quick links, these are things that I do every day. So these are tasks that I do every day. So for example, if I reconcile bank accounts every day, I could get into that with just one click. If I'm at month end and I'm trying to close out the books for the month or maybe the year, maybe my accounts payable subledger is out of balance from my general ledger, and that could happen in payables, receivables, sometimes inventory or bank reconciliation. The system won't do that. That's usually initiated by you, where maybe a batch isn't posted that should have been, or somebody deleted something they shouldn't have if they had the authority to do so. But Dynamics GP won't take you out of balance, but sometimes we're smarter than the software. We can do that. And so maybe my payables doesn't match my GL, and my payables account up here is just this 2100 account. And so I can actually have the system create a spreadsheet for me, a reconciliation. There it is. And so this would show all of the transactions that are matched or not matched. And so it looks on the left here at the subledger, looks at the payables detail for the period. In this case, I'm doing March. And then it looks at the general ledger for the same period and looks to see, did I find that transaction in the GL? And then it looks backwards. So it looks at the GL to see, can I match that transaction with something in the subledger? And then it creates a reconciliation of the numbers and shows you if you're not in balance. And so there's no more guessing or trying to figure out what happened or didn't happen and so on. And so Dynamics GP does that for us automatically. The system does handle allocations, and so that comes up a lot. There's two ways to do that. One is a fixed allocation, and that means that it's fixed and that every month until we change it, we are going to want to post to the same accounts with the same amount, so the same allocated amount. And so here I've set up a rent, and so what I'm telling the system is when I post to this 0006180 account, rent expense, I really don't want to keep the numbers there. What I do want to do is reallocate that back to my different departments or division, so to speak, and I've got 6 of those here, so 100 through 600, and the software has been set up to say, okay, I want 5% to go to division 100, I want 15% to go to division 200, and so on, and you'll see that those equal 100%, and so that's a fixed allocation, and that until I change those percentages, every time I use the 0006180 account, the Dynamics GP, the system will reallocate based on these fixed percentages. And so that's one way to spread dollars around departments or divisions. Sometimes though, our allocations change, and so this is what we call a variable allocation, and this is for utilities, and the same idea is when I post to 0006190, I really want the system to reallocate into my department 100 through 600, but I don't have a fixed amount. Instead, what I want the software to do is look to what we call a breakdown account and figure out what percent is this account to the total breakdowns, and then use that percentage. And so that's why it's a variable, is it changes every month or could change every month. And so what's this breakdown account? Well, that's going to be what's called a unit account. So in other words, a non-financial account. And we have room for unlimited of those. And so you see here all my non-financial accounts. I have things like square footage, number of computers, it could be number of telephones, some other fixed asset, quantity that we're tracking. And so it's really up to us. There's no limit on what we could put in the system that aren't involved in dollars and cents, debits and credits. These are non-financial accounts. And so, when we're using the variable allocation, what we're doing is saying, in this case, we're using the head count, and so the employee count. And so we would, of course, have to put a journal entry in every month into that 190-20 and 290-20 down to 690-20, the number of people that we had in that department. And so then we're telling Dynamics is when we post to 0006190, we want you to look at the head count for that department, take that as a percent of the total head count for all departments, and then whatever that percentage is, then allocate that percent of utilities into utilities for that same department. 160-190-00, which is my dollars and cents account over here on the left. And so those are kind of a couple popular ways to do allocations where we can spread costs around, so to speak, into different departments and parts of the organization. If we deal with the bank, and sometimes they want us to use a positive pay, their positive pay system, and so here's Bank of America's positive pay. So this tells the bank how many checks we wrote and what each check is worth, and they compare that when the check is presented for payment. They compare that to make sure that the check that we sent out is the same check that's actually coming back to the bank, and somebody's not printing checks that we don't know about. And so we can set up any bank positive pay system. So as long as it's a bank that's in the US or Canada or really in North America, it's very easily done. We can do international banks. We can do most of those as well, but anything on the North American continent we know works. And so that's pretty popular nowadays. It's a safeguard between you and your banking relationship. Of course, we could reconcile bank accounts in the system. And so here I'll just grab one of the accounts that I have. We've got room for unlimited. So there's no master record limitations or transaction limitations. So we can have unlimited accounts, unlimited customers, unlimited vendors, inventory items, projects, bank accounts, and so forth, employees. There's no hard-coded limits on any of that. And so here when I click on transactions, I've kind of already started the reconciliation. You'll see it go gather the transactions out of an electronic file. And so you see here it says electronic file there, or electronic reconcile, running just for a few seconds. And so what the system does, or as an option can do, is we download a file from the bank, and that file has the cleared checks and deposits and maybe some other charges and debit and credit memos and stuff that ran through the bank account. And so the system will look at that file that we create, and we go grab the transactions every day from the bank, and it'll come into the reconciliation window and tick off those transactions that it can match. And sometimes it can't match, maybe a check cleared for a little bit different amount or something, and so there's always kind of a little bit of manual kind of intelligence that we have to apply. Sometimes our account earns interest. Well, that might not be in the system, and so that's going to be in the download file. We'd have to add that in as we're doing the reconciliation here. And so we can do that through the adjustments. If there's a service charge or interest income that we've earned, or some other wire fee or something that maybe we wouldn't have recorded in the accounting system yet, we can do that here kind of on the fly. But the idea is that we get the system to do a lot of that work, and we don't have to go in and tick off transactions manually, although we could. If that one cleared and for some reason the file didn't pick it up or wasn't in there, we can tick these off to our own liking here. And so unlimited reconciliation opportunities there. A lot of people do reconcile every day or every week now. I don't know if we have any customers that wait until the end of the month and do a reconciliation. That's kind of a, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's kind of an outdated way to do it, where you have this massive process at the end of the month that you're trying to scramble and do. So kind of working back up here, the business analyzer, which I'm going to make a little bit bigger here, and so you can see with just a click here that I can change the view of my screen. And so this allows me to kind of focus what it is that I'm doing, and I've kind of put focus on the charts and graphs and KPIs here that are available in the system. And so you see I've got a number of things here that I've selected in. There's a couple hundred of these that come with, and of course you can change any of these you want. You can you can add your own, you can edit what Microsoft has done. You don't have to use theirs, but this is really just kind of to get us started. And this really takes the data, takes the underlying data, and really just presents it in something that might be a little easier to look at. And so, I can go look at a report that has my cash information on it, but sometimes it's easier just to look at a graph, especially a senior level executive. They could pick this information up, and they don't need to know exactly to the dollar what the cash number is, but just kind of about where it stands. And so this is helpful if we're a Dynamics GP user, but many times we're not. And so, but we still need access to the data. And so you saw it there running inside of my Dynamics system. But all of these reports and charts and graphs are available through a browser, really any browser. And so I'm drilling in here, happen to be using Internet Explorer, but you'll notice that I've got a lot of these reports that are kind of sitting out there. This is all out of the box stuff. I haven't touched any of these. I haven't even edited any of these. You're just seeing it the way it comes from Microsoft. And so here's kind of my financial charts and graphs folder, and I think that's the one we're looking at. And so in a few seconds here, the system will actually go get the data and present the graph back to me running in my browser. Well, that's the same piece of information that's running inside of Dynamics. And so I can view this because it is browser-based and runs on any browser. I can view this on my phone, my Android, my iPhone, my tablet device, my Windows tablet, of course. But this is kind of nice that we could, present this to the CFO, for example, or CEO, and they might be traveling and only have their iPad, and so there's no reason to cut them off from seeing the data because we're in a Windows environment. Of course not. And so they can see all of these metrics on any device that they carry, and hopefully not have to call accounting every day and get an update. They'd be able to see exactly what we're seeing inside of our system here. And so lots of options here. Again, I just put a few of them on my home page, but based on my role here, you'll see I've got on the left, these are the 4 that I have on my home page, but on the left are all the available charts and graphs and reports and KPIs. And so there's several hundred of them in there. Again, based on the modules that we have, if we're not doing payroll or HR in the software, then those reports would be worthless to us. But sales, purchasing, financial, inventory, kind of those core things are all readily available with just a click of the mouse here. And so that's kind of what the business analyzer kind of portion of my homepage represents. And I'll tuck that back up where it came from. And then the last area is kind of the to-do area. And this is really just me as a user getting kind of the heartbeat of what's happening in the software. And so you'll see here I've got several things that kind of pop up here kind of under my reminder section. And we see that these are all kind of drillable. And so when I hover over, I can see that I can drill down. And this really is an area that the software is actually using some intelligence to provide me as a user what's happening under the hood. And so yes, I could go run a report, or I could go look at a chart or a graph, and I could figure it out. I could request the information and extract it, go get it. And that's certainly lots and lots of people still do it that way. But another way is to have the software know what's important to us, and then as those conditions happen or occur kind of under the hood, the software tells us what's happening instead of us having to go look every day or ask with a report or an inquiry. We get the software to provide that information back to us. And so here, I'll just pick on one here. Here's customers over their credit limit. And so that's opens another window, and you'll notice this window is called SmartList up here at the top. This is yet another way to extract information from our dynamic system in a form that we can use. And so Microsoft realizes that there's no programmer in the world smart enough to design a report that every single one of us want. It could be the same data, but some of us look at it alphabetically, some of us look at it, high to low, low to high, by location, by division, by department, by salesperson, by vendor, you name it. There's no way to figure out all of our needs at any point in time. Sometimes we don't even know what we want until we're down the road a few years and we have a request from someone, and we have to go get a report that fulfills that request. And so SmartList really is that tool to allow us to extract the data in the form that we want it in, not the way some programmer decided it should be in. And so this one that I had on my home page is customers over their credit limit. And so we can see just with the simple return of the data here that, yeah, I got a credit limit, and it looks like all these customers have exceeded that. And so, that happens from time to time. And so, we could do something about this. You'll notice the Word button up here, and so this is all Microsoft, and so you'd expect some Word and Excel integration. We can write these people a letter, and so you'll see it senses that I've got customer data, so it's presenting customer type letters. It's not going to give me vendor selections here or employee selections, because that would be completely inappropriate. And so I can say, let's prepare a customer letter. And from here, I see the letter templates that are available. Now, the same rule applies here. Microsoft ships about 60 or so of these templates that are word-based with the software. We can edit any of their templates to our own liking, or we can ignore theirs and do unlimited letter templates of our own. And so they just give us a number here to get started. And so from here, we see that, let's see, I'm dealing with customers over their credit limit, so maybe the adjustment to the credit limit number, you know, that's one way to fix this problem is just up their credit limit. That's kind of an easy way, and not necessarily something we do, you know, every day in real life, but just to pacify my sample data here. And so these are the customers that are on the SmartList window. Well, you know, maybe I'm not going to do these guys because I'm not sure that they're worth changing their credit limit, and so I'll just do those 4. And then here, you know, we'll just how we want the letter signed, and so I'll make myself the credit manager today, and so then we'll click finish, and the Dynamics GP system does a mail merge with the letter template or my edited template, and of course that always opens on my other monitor. And so here are the letters for the 4 people we've selected with a spot for me to sign. And so, yep, there's all 4 of them. And so here, you know, I can send these letters out however I would normally handle this from Word. At this point, these are Word documents, and so they're no longer restricted to the accounting system. So this is my sample company here today. So, you know, I could do anything that I would normally do in Word and add anything and so on. But if I print these and mail them or fax them or email them or whatever it might be, they're kind of Word documents. So however I normally would communicate from my Word document to, in this case, my customer, I would pick up and do that. But this is the template, kind of the out-of-the-box template. And, you know, typically we would edit this template and say your credit limit has been adjusted from, and have the credit limit put in there, and then maybe 2 and have a new number in there, or maybe just the 2 number or something. And so, you know, the template, if we edited the template, it would allow us to add that other variable in there. So obviously this is pulling variables so that it gets the person's name and company information and so forth into the template. And so that's one example of integration with the rest of the Office products. Let's do one more here, and we'll pick on vendors now a little bit. And so as I've kind of untucked under the hood, I see all the different views into the system. And remember, I don't have any security on my account, so I can see everything. And so down under purchasing, I'm going to find my vendor information. And so here's, I'll just go to the asterisk there. And so that's just a demographic kind of list of vendors. This view is good if I was sending out a holiday card or something. Maybe not much valuable. Make that a little bit bigger, but maybe not much valuable if I wasn't doing some kind of a mailing. But let's change this up a little bit. And so what we want to do is go to columns. And I don't care about phone number, I'm taking that off. I don't care about vendor ID, I'm taking that off. And so I'm going to clean that up, but then I'm going to add some things that that I might want. And so as long as I have access to the database, then everything is available to me here. And so let's just grab some 1099 information. I'll grab the 1099 type. And then really what I want to do is have the software use some of its own intelligence, and I want to see if I have my tax ID number. And so, you know, if I'm going to issue a 1099 and I don't have their federal identification number, then I'm going to get stopped there. And so, and that tax ID number is kind of important, so I really want to see that right up there under the vendor name. And so when I click OK, the system requeries the data very quickly here and presents back what I've asked for. And so so this is good. It's you know, I can see I've got some data as expected. I've got a lot of vendors that you know, I've not paid anything. I've got a bunch of vendors that are not really flagged to be a 1099 vendor, and so all that's mixed in there together. And of course, in my 102 vendors here, it's somewhat easy to tell, but imagine if you had 10,000 or 100,000 vendors here, you know, it would take you a while to comb through the list. And so, and of course, you know, this has the Excel functionality, so if I wanted to sort by state or reverse sort, any column clicking up here does exactly what you would expect it to do. And so, but it's still kind of messy, and so I'm going to use the search feature here, and I can put up to 4 different layers of searching. And so the first one, I might want to say, do I even have a 1099 requirement? And so I'm going to say is the 1099 type, and I'm going to say is equal to what it's selected there, but you'll see I've got a lot of other options here. And I'm going to say if it's equal to a miscellaneous. And so, and then did I pay them any money? And so did I pay them this year something greater than 600? That's the 1099 limit for we technically have to send one, or legally maybe is the right answer. And then really I want to see, do I have a problem? And so I'm going to say is my tax ID number, and I'm just going to say is that blank, is it equal to nothing? And so I'm going to say really in a snapshot here, show me my 1099 vendors that are set for miscellaneous reporting. Did I pay them more than the legal 600 to issue the form? And if I did, then do I have a tax ID number on file? And so I'm going to say okay. And so we do have some problems here. So I paid these guys lots of money. I said that they were supposed to get a tax form, but my tax ID number here is blank. And so again, I could use the word template. You'll notice now that it senses that I'm in the vendor letter area, and I want to actually produce the letters, but you'll see I happen to have a request for a W-9. Again, I'm just looking at out-of-the-box stuff here. I happen to know that one was out there coming from Microsoft, but I could create you know, hundreds of templates here if I wanted to. Anything really that I might need, I can add into the system. If for some reason I wanted to send this list out to Excel for whatever reason, I have that ability. With one click, I can click the Excel button, and you'll see I get a nice formatted Excel spreadsheet that I can work with in the future. But here I just want to save this. Maybe I've already sent the letters out, and so I'm going to make it a favorite here, and we'll say GP Product Tour 1099, whatever. And so I'm going to add that as a favorite, which means remember it, but I'm going to put it on my home page as a reminder. And when I do that, the system says, okay, well, when do you want it on your home page? And I'm going to say if the number of records is greater than 0. So in other words, if there's just one of these, I want it to show up on my home page, and I want it to show up as a visual cue, which is a little picture. And so when I do that, I'm just going to toggle off my home page and back on so it refreshes. And so now you see I've got a visual cue, in other words, a little picture of called GP Product Tour of those 7 vendors that are missing 1099s. And when I click on it, it goes right back to where I left off, so I don't have to rebuild this or remember what I did. It's all there, and I can continue to monitor this. Now, when I get all 7 W-9s back and I enter their 1099, then the list is going to be empty. This visual cue then is going to disappear from my homepage, because the requirement is if there are more than 0, I want you to show me. Well, once it's 0, it's going to drop off. But anytime during the year or ongoing until I delete this reminder, anytime that happens, it'll pop up on my homepage if there's 0, if there's 1 or more. And so I'll know, oh, we got a 1099 vendor that we didn't get their W-9, or maybe we just don't have it keyed into the system. And so this whole reminder area is really the software using intelligence based on our requirements to tell us what's happening under the hood. And so we don't have to go print reports and look and figure out, you know, do I have any vendors that don't have TINs that are flagged 1099? Yeah, I could run a report on that, but that's not very much fun. Let's get the software to tell us when we might have a problem. And so really unlimited choices here on things that we can create and put on our homepage. And again, every user will do something different based on what they do in the company. And so now just a couple other things on the home page here. Let me go down to the time management area. You see down towards the bottom. This is a spot that if I was working with payroll and collecting time cards that I might want to, take advantage of. An employee can come in. Maybe they need a copy of their pay stub, and so you'll see here for the employee that I'm set up as, I've got all my recent pay stubs. These are direct deposit, so you'll see the check number shows DD and then a big long number. But if I needed to reprint this pay stub, maybe I'm at the bank for a car loan or I just need it, of course I could print that directly. I'm going to view it so we can all see it. And so that just reprints a simple copy of what was on that pay stub. So there's this payday and then of course my year-to-date. So it would look like the check stub, but obviously just in paper form because it's a reprint of what the data looks like. And so, employees can do that without bothering payroll or HR anytime they need a reprint of that. If maybe it's time for W-2s and we've processed those, we don't hand out paper W-2s anymore. We just tell people maybe via email, hey, your W-2s are out there, and they can log in and retrieve those forms from their homepage if they like. And so here's a copy of my 2017 W-2, and of course I could send that to myself. I could print that off on my printer here. However, I want to get a hard copy if I do need one. And so the other thing is entering time, and so if we do collect time and we have people that enter time cards, the system has that. Again, you're seeing everything here out of the box, and so I haven't touched anything at all other than maybe saving that SmartList for my 1099s, which is really just something you watched me do. And so here's a picture of my time card, and I only have one in there that's not posted, and so I'm only seeing one, but I entered some time earlier this year, and on these particular dates and hours, and of course it populates my department, my position, and so forth. It tells me my pay period and when this payroll period is that I'm looking at, and my job description, kind of what department I work in, and my supervisor information and so forth. And so if I wanted to actually drill into that time card, and so here's where I actually keyed that time in, and of course I could come in and make any changes if I said, well, no, that was really 8 hours there, and maybe I only worked 7.5 there. Hopefully you wouldn't have to do that after the fact, that you're accurate the first time, but maybe I worked 2 hours on Friday and 1.5 hours on Saturday, and so really this is designed for timekeepers to come in and put their own time in. And so once they do that, the time is required to get submitted to the workflow, and the workflow is the approval process. And so I'll show you kind of my workflow, and I had this fail a few times so you could kind of that we do keep track of all the history of the workflow. And so if I submit my timesheet and it goes to my boss or supervisor for approval, that's fine. It would get approved, and maybe it goes to someone else, and finally goes to payroll. There's no limit on how many levels of approval we can have here, but I let mine fail a few times, so you could see that it failed. I resubmitted, and it failed, and the system's telling me why it failed, and I don't have an approver is the problem, and so it's going to fail every time because I didn't take the time to set up an approver for myself, because that would have to be me as well. And so I resubmitted, and you'll see my notes on there. Let's try again, here just exclamation marks like, why aren't you taking my time? And so, that's for the user to actually send to the next person in the chain. And so all of that history is tracked forever. That will never go away. We'll always know who approved or who rejected, whatever it might be. And so you see my status here is rejected, of course, and it's waiting for me to resubmit and try to get it approved, which I know it's going to fail. And so, we can do things like that out of the box. Over on the right-hand side, we can enter purchase requisitions. And so if we have a need for someone to buy something, and so I've got only one out there. And so here I've entered a requisition, and you'll notice as we open some of these windows, you'll see the different colors. The red is required, and so if we're going to do something with this window, if we're going to proceed, we have to tell the system those things that are in red. Everything else is optional, and the blue just means that there's more information. We can look things up provided we have security. So shipping method, for example, is blue. I can click on the looking glass and I can pick from a list that my company has made available to me how I want this product shipped. And then of course the address, and most of this is going to default in, but provided the user has security, they could actually make edits here if we want them to. And so here, you know, I've got a requisition for paint equipment. You know, that's probably not the official name, but maybe I've attached, yeah, see, per attached quote. And so, well, where's that attached quote? My little attachment window is up here, this little notepad. You see kind of a post-it note, and I can click on the paper clip. And I do have a scanner. In fact, I have it in there twice, so the system stops here. And so the software is just checking to see if the scanner's out there and active, and it is. And so I could scan directly from the scanner into this window, multiple pages, or I could go attach something that was already brought into the system. And so let me see here, maybe I've got maybe a W9, that's pretty safe there. And so I can attach that, and of course it is part of the software, and so I can preview it directly from the window here, and so that actually is a legitimate W9 for us. And so, you know, I could have attached that quote, for example, and so when I say per attached quote, they kind of know what I'm talking about. When I do make an attachment, it draws lines on the paper, so I know a year from now, 5 years from now, if I'm looking at this transaction in history, that, oh yes, there was something back there because there's lines, meaning I wrote on it, type thing, I attached something. And so that's my visual cue that there's something back there. And so we can do the same thing here, like with the time card. These go into the workflow for approval. And again, I let this fail out a few times so that you could see that just like the time card, we keep track of all the history. You know, my original submission here and my note to my supervisor or approver was this is the equipment we spoke about. So, but of course I didn't have an approver, so it rejected out, and then I submitted it a few more times. And so all of that's in there, so there's never a question about, hey, who approved this expense anyway? That's all there for us to have forever and ever. And so so a lot of people do just work off their home page and really don't ever navigate anywhere else in the system. If they put everything that they do every day on their home page, they really don't have a need to, and everything is available with one click off the page. And so that's a very nice feature. Occasionally, sometimes are not Dynamics GP users, and so what we sometimes have to do is give them a way to get into the system that that maybe they don't know or even care that we're using Dynamics GP. And so we've got a time management app that I just opened, and this is an app. And so an app meaning that this runs on an iPhone, an Android phone, or a Windows phone. And so this is a way for people to, on their phone, to put in a kind of a PTO request. And so you'll see this is my calendar, and these are my PTO requests that I have out there. And over here I can see my balance. I've got 120 hours of vacation left. So, well, you know, maybe Friday's going to be a good day for vacation. And so I go in and I say I want to take a full day's vacation. And so that puts it on my PTO calendar. Well, at this point, that would actually get submitted to my manager, and they could approve or reject, saying, you know, yep, good, have fun, or no, Friday's inventory, there's no way you're taking that day off, and then they could reject it and take it off my calendar. And so ultimately, once this is approved, it rolls over to Payroll/HR if we happen to be doing those functions in the software, and then Payroll knows that I had a full vacation day that day and either pays me for it, or if I'm salary, reduces my bank and so forth. And if I don't do payroll in the system, that's fine. I can still use the PTO. It just doesn't actually go over for payment. And you'll see here I can look at time cards that I have saved out there, and I've done a few here just throughout the last year or so, and what I've submitted, and I've got one in history, which means it's been approved, and I can't go get it back and change it. And so that little app is available. You could go literally download that from whatever store you shop. If it's Android that you're using, you could go download that from the Android store, the Google store, and put that on your phone immediately. And so lots and lots of people can go get that, and you can look at it even if you're not hooked. If you don't have it set up, it still will run in demo mode, and you can play around with it. And so so let's see, maybe just the last couple of minutes here, we will actually navigate off of our home page, and I'm going to go over to purchasing. And when I click on purchasing on the left, and this kind of will remind you of the Outlook kind of look and feel, the way it's laid out. And so instead of mail, calendar, contacts, and so forth, I've got the modules in Dynamics GP here in the accounting system. But as I turn on purchasing and flip over there, I left my home page, I came to the purchasing page. Everything to do with purchasing that I have security to shows up now on my page. And again, so I'm one click away from any task or function. And like my home page, I can rearrange these. So if I say, well, I really want this one up there, I want my reports up here, and routines I'm going to tuck in here. So, and that has nothing to do with your purchasing page or your home page. If I were to do it on my home, this remembers it for me. If I log in at your machine, I get my pages. If you log in at your machine, you get your pages. And so, maybe some of this stuff I don't even have access to, I don't ever use, I don't even know what it is. And so I just want to clear my page up, and I want to take those things off that I don't ever use. And so I can do that as well. And so here, we won't go into a lot of this, but maybe in the inquiry area, and I'll kind of put my focus on that. And so you'll see that optionally I have my unused areas, or my less focused areas, kind of tucked off to the right. Those could go to the left, or they could go to the bottom. It all really depends on kind of how we want our page to look like. And so, yeah, already did that. And so here, what I'm going to do is drive into my purchasing all-in-one view. And so really this screen kind of brings everything together with everything to do with purchasing, from purchase order, the receipt of a PO, the invoice from the vendor, the payment from the vendor, if there's a return back to the vendor. Those are all shown here on my all-in-one view. And so let me just grab a vendor that has some activity. I think this guy does. And so here you'll see the system start to populate all the POs on the far left. I don't have any returns, I guess, to this vendor on the right. And so so this is good, but really what I want to do is I want to see maybe from the payment, I want to drive backwards to the PO to see what PO ended up in this payment. And so here's a payment, and of course these big long numbers are just the system numbers, and they're blue, so I can drill down, and so I can look at this payment to Advanced Office Systems. Of course, I could put some documentation here, or I could scan something and add in if I wanted to, but I know there's nothing out there because there's no lines on my little Post-it pad here. But we see here it was a check drawn on my bank, Uptown Trust. It was my check 20034. I can come in and see the invoice that got applied, or that payment took care of. And so that's good. I could even kind of recreate the check stub. So if I needed to send a check stub to this vendor, I could. Now imagine this was just one invoice that was being paid, but imagine if I paid 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 invoices, then that's kind of the overflow stub down here. So all of those would be listed so the vendor could see what the apply information should be if for some reason they lost the stub or just didn't get it applied right. And so so that's good. I can drill back to it. But really what I want to do is see which invoice, maybe I've got tens of thousands of transactions in here. So when I just check this payment, then you'll see that the system clears off anything not hooked into that payment. And so kind of working backwards, I can see, oh, here's the invoice that payment paid. Yep, $455.36. My check was $455.36. I could drill back on the invoice, and so and it actually came from the receipt of a PO. And so if I wanted more detail, I can always do the drill down. But this invoice originated from this receipt. And again, I could drill back to the receipt. And so there's where the product or the purchase order came in. And I could drill all the way back to the PO and see the original starting point. I can see the PO's closed out down here, which makes sense. And so I can see all of this information hooked together in one place. And that's why we call it the all-in-one view, because there's one screen to go to that pulls everything together from PO up through payment, and if there was ever a return that was hooked into that original invoice or receipt, everything's there in one spot. I don't have to go digging through drawers and drawers of file cabinets and so forth. And so we have that in purchasing, we have that in sales for customers, and we have that in inventory, so we can see product and how it's moved around, what's been received, what's been sold, into who and where and when and date and so forth. So one of the maybe kind of last things is, since we're in purchasing, I'll use the Excel reports option here, and Microsoft sends a couple hundred Excel reports with the software, and this is yet a different reporting system. And so we have SmartList, we have the traditional kind of off the menu reports, we have Excel reports, we have the charts and graphs and KPIs that we saw on my home page and also in my browser, and so 4 or 5 different reporting tools, because they get the fact that we all kind of work different, we all have different levels of expertise. Some of us are very comfortable in Excel, some of us feel better with the old style accounting reports. Some of us will be good with SmartList and building our own and just going crazy with reports. And so they give us a lot of choice. Sometimes I tell people they give us too many choices, but they don't really. They give us lots and lots of ways to look at the data. And so here's a lot of reports that have to do with purchasing. So purchasing meaning accounts payable and purchase order. But what I wanted to call out was the dashboard that comes with the system in purchasing. And the same rule is here. Obviously we can edit any of this up we like, but we have a dashboard in purchasing, sales, inventory, payroll and HR, and in financial. And so I'm just going to click that in view, and the system will open that. And of course these are Excel based, and so here's my purchasing dashboard kind of out of the box. I haven't changed anything from the way Microsoft shipped it, but and again I've got unlimited security so nothing's being blocked from me, but lots of vendor information here, balance information, because I do use purchase orders. I've got my PO graph populating. If I don't use POs, that's fine. We just take that piece right off the dashboard. I can drill into my inventory system, and so in this case I can view my order point, so what's kind of due for ordering. I can see requisitions that have been submitted if I use the requisition system, and so there's requisition number 1 that we've been playing with or looking at today. I can see requisitions that have been saved in the system. I can see outstanding purchase orders, product that's been received that hasn't been invoiced yet from the vendor, and then kind of down over vendor balances here. And of course these are all editable by what we actually see. So if I don't care to see anything really small, I just want to see balances that might be on the larger side to see who might be asking for money. And so lots and lots of things we can do with the charts and graphs and KPIs that they ship along. But you can imagine maybe a C-level person wanting to see something like this. They don't necessarily need to know all of the line items that make up these numbers, but just kind of where do we stand, or a purchasing manager or an accounting manager. And so we can do anything that we like with Microsoft's, or we could of course make up our own. And so I think the very last thing is well, two more things. One, very simple. I'm going to go back to my financial page, or well, we haven't been here. I'm going to go to my financial page and go to my journal entry screen. And so this is just kind of a standard journal entry that I would key into the system. And again, lots of requirements here so we can keep track of what's happening. But you know, I don't want to key in the entry. Instead, I've done an entry here in Excel. And yeah, this is a small one, so pretty straightforward. But imagine if I had, you know, 50 or 100 or 1,000 line journal entry, and you know, some people do that. I don't really want to key those in because I'm probably going to make a mistake. And so I'm just going to copy this, just a typical copy out of Excel, and then I'm going to come back to my Dynamics GP journal entry screen, and you'll notice that the Excel paste button is active here, and when I click paste, it actually pastes that journal entry right from the spreadsheet here into the journal entry window. And so that saves me a whole bunch of time. I'm never going to go wrong as long as I have the ability to do a copy and paste. I really will never mess this up. And so that's a huge time saver for a lot of folks, is the copy and paste right into the journal entry screen. And of course, all I have to do is either post it or put it in a batch. I can come back to it later, give it a description on what the entry is about, and I'm done. I don't have to do any number keying or looking up of accounts or anything of the sort. And so I'll just delete that. And then I did want to show something in sales, just bring up my sales transaction entry, and I've got an invoice out here that I've already kind of keyed in a little bit. And so I think it's this one, yeah. And so I've just put this invoice in, and the sales order window here is fairly busy, if you will, because it's doing a lot of things. And so we can have unlimited ship tos here by customer, and of course I could, you know, have unlimited product lines. My inventory system, if I'm using it, is involved here. And so we have a lot of things going on here on the selling side. But I put a few lines in here, nothing significant, but I did want to show you that I can email any of these documents. Of course, I can email purchase orders, I can email vendor remittance statements out, I can email employee pay stubs or direct deposit vouchers from payroll, but the big one that a lot of people do is emailing of the invoice. And so here, click on the email button, and of course I've already set an email address up. I happen to set my own up, and so when that comes into my Outlook, and there it is, and so I can open that. There's what the email looks like, and I've sent this out in PDF, and so you see here that I've got the invoice now. Now I dropped a logo on here of another client that we use a lot, and so that obviously is a place for your logo. But here's my company name and the invoice information, and you'll notice that actually looks a lot like Microsoft Word, because it is. We use Word a lot to do purchase orders and invoices and kind of external documents, just so they look a lot nicer. And so this was delivered in Word and bundled up into a PDF and then emailed out all in just a few seconds. And so lots and lots of good options there on trying to integrate with the Office system to deliver a nice looking document out to customers, so it looks like we're using something that's more modern and not something from the 1980s or 90s. And so with that, we're running very close on time. I apologize for the mysterious freezing of everything there at the beginning, but Ashley, are there any questions in the queue, or anybody have any questions?
Yeah, we do actually have one question. Is there a production order module in GP?
There is, yes. I don't have that installed in this particular copy, but yes, there is. There's a whole manufacturing system with order processing and work centers and routings and quality assurance, and just a very extensive build and manufacturing part of the software. And so we could follow up if somebody would like to see that. Just let us know. We'd be happy to do. I'd be happy to show you that part of it just on your own, whenever.
Sounds good. And it doesn't look like there were any other questions submitted.
All right. Well, 1 minute to spare according to my clock. And so thank you everyone for attending. This was kind of a whirlwind tour of very high-level Dynamics GP 2016 R2. But if there's something that you think of or you want to drill into a little bit in depth or want kind of a private showing of more of this or different parts of the system, just let us know. We're always happy to do that. We're always here. And really would enjoy showing you a deeper dive into Microsoft Dynamics GP.
Great, thank you, Brian. And yeah, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with the link to the recording, and that's where you can ask any follow-up questions that you might have. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ashley.